The Sublime Quran, Original Arabic and English Translation, Volume 1, translated by Laleh Bakhtiar, Library of Islam, and revised edition of Volume 2. Now, the table of contents is excellent. The index is certainly one of the better ones. And the translation itself is one of the best ones. Now, it could have used more proofreading, but it's easier to figure out which phrases are connected to which part of the translation. It doesn't rely on older translations. She actually knows her Arabic. Now, she goes a bit too far with Surah 434, and but linguists and traditionalists who actually refer to the sources of what the Prophet said and did know that Islam doesn't allow abuse of women. But the fact that the Prophet stayed away from his wives after there was an issue, well, that's one of the steps. But does it say, those would take it too far on the other side? It doesn't say to abuse anybody. It doesn't say to injure one's wives. And it makes clear that the discipline to a wife or child isn't, you don't just jump to spanking people or something like that, that's the first thing or anything like that. And it's not to the degree of a slave, and a slave not like that which committed a offense like theft or something like that, where the state would have to deal with you. Now, Islam envisions a society that doesn't have as much enforced by the government, so people say, oh, that's super right-wing and all that stuff, and people are afraid of that nowadays. But she makes a very good point in having her commentary separate, because the Quran needs to stand for itself. Now, the surface that I have this on is not one that humans have ever stepped on. And I keep it clean for sticking books and other display items and stuff on. So don't take issue with that of something that's not really the case. Now, people don't like what she has said because she's gone against a lot of conservatives. But in that, it's not that she's gone against the Prophet, what the Prophet said or did, or how he understood that. That's not her point in her comment. And some people, I've seen Qurans removed from libraries in masajid because of something in a commentary. And if hers is banned somewhere, it's probably because of the commentary, which, as I'm saying, it's not whatever. And certainly one of the issues that has been pointed at, she has a degree from Al-Azhar and a certification that the Arabic is correct. Now, the Quran is not translated. You could say in that way. The Quran is only the Arabic. But everything in Al-Quran can be translated. Surah 5103 should have been fully translated instead of leaving in technical terms of animal superstitions that were being condemned. And I think there's a few other instances like that most translators don't actually translate those terms. Zakum, Zanjabil, Salsabil. I'm not sure how many of these that she has translated, but she brings up in her commentary how there's 5 variations of how many verses are in the Quran. There's, within the dialects, but there's not argument about how much is of the Quran. She makes a point to not render the translation by having the same word always in the same places or anything like that. And yeah, she lists out how she had over 38,000 particles and 52,889 parts to it. The Quran's not a text that is frozen, like the people who will say that, well, if you can't find somebody who knew Muhammad saying or doing something in regards to the Quran, then you can't make that comment. No, what is the case is that you shouldn't, refer to the sources. What is Islamic can very well be tied to what the Quran says, what the Prophet has commented on. You don't need an example, specific example, for it to be such. And certainly there's more scientific findings and certain material and psychological things that you may not be able to find in those sources, but there's certainly valid expressions of that. And we need to be clear of the equality of the races and the sexes. They're different, certainly some of them, particularly when you're talking gender differences, but it's not at all saying anything to the respect of, that men are better than women or something like that. It's just, we should make very clear that some words and phrases used in a translation might not be the same as they would be for everyone. And yes, Allah is a singular and definitive term for God, but when we throw in terms, we need to make clear that we're talking about the same thing. That's why I think that she should have, aside from, it's like, yeah, I know about the Shia and the Sunni and Sufi points of view, but, it's not about, now she doesn't go, Islam's beyond that. It's not stuck in time. It's not stuck in a particular sect. She uses this double cross thing to indicate the prostration points, but she's of the opinion that you have 14 of them instead of 15 of them. There is value in the meaning, not just in the words themselves, but certainly there's value in the words themselves that goes beyond even when you get out all the different meanings from a literal or other sense. And, the process of talking to and separating and that sort of thing in reference to the wives, that is not just something you don't like. Now, you can get divorced over things you don't like, but it's about fearing something wrong that maybe want to keep the problems out of the public eye. That's the context too. Islam is open to everybody to directly find out and interpret for themselves. So this talk about